Today I am talking with David Griggs. David is a retired U.S. Navy Command Master Chief. He retired after 30 years of service. David has led an organization of 1,900 people as the Command Master Chief, which is similar to being a district manager. In this role, his organization consisted of 9 aircraft squadrons, geographically located in several locations between Washington State, California, and Virginia. And now, after his transition from the military, he's a financial center manager with Bank of America. And if you would tell us a little bit more about yourself, how did you get here today, where you are today?
Well, good question. So, actually, I joined the Navy many years ago as a way to kind of get out of town and start my life fresh because I was really going nowhere fast. And I'm glad I did because I ended up, like you said, serving 30 years total and learned a lot from the Navy, was able to get my college degrees through the Navy. I got my bachelor's in business administration and human resource management, and then I went on and got my MBA right before I retired, and that really allowed me to transition into the civilian community, the civilian workforce after I retired. And it was kind of a long journey. I did a lot of research and whatnot on how to transition. I've seen a lot of people from the military who are getting close to that transition time, and they often think that, hey, I've done this, I'm all that in the military. I'm going to have people knocking down my doors trying to hire me, and that's not really the case. A lot of people have a hard time translating what they did in the military to something that a civilian hiring manager can understand and correlate that to something that you can do, for the civilian companies or whatever that you're looking for. So, like I said, I did a lot of research into that. I ended up a long process interviewing with Bank of America. It was about a 6-month interview process overall. Several interviews. They flew me up to Seattle from California, where I was stationed at the time. Met with a couple of senior vice presidents, toured a bank, showed me the ins and outs, and eventually was offered the financial center manager position. And I started out 8 months at a smaller branch, kind of learning the ropes a little bit, and now I'm managing one of the larger financial centers in Washington State. And my particular center is we generate about 10% of the revenue in Washington State alone, just at my center. So quickly moved from a smaller branch to one of the larger ones.
Wow! Congratulations. That's awesome. Now, what does a financial center manager do? Maybe in a nutshell. I'm sure you have a whole list of stuff. Could you give us kind of a nutshell answer to that?
Well, yeah. Financial center manager. It's I'm the leader of the branch, more or less, and I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations for everything that goes on within that financial center. So the banking industry is one of the most heavily regulated industries in the country, and for some good reasons, obviously. But so there's just a ton of regulatory things that I have to be on top of and be aware of, and make sure that everybody in my center is operating, morally, ethically, within the guidelines of our regulations and compliance issues. So whether it's paperwork, disclosures, you name it, all the operation stuff, and that's a big part of it. Most people think of banking as just the transactions going in and seeing a teller and making deposits. There is just a ton more to it than that, and it really opened my eyes when I got into it as well, because I wasn't really, I came into it with eyes wide open, not really knowing a whole lot about the banking industry, and it's just it's much more than just transactional stuff at the teller. As a matter of fact, the banking industry is really pushing people out the door and trying to get people to do things on their own whether it's digitally, online, mobile, ATMs, etc. And 90% of the things that people do with banking can be done on their own in those areas. So, it's just a lot to it. And then aside from from the operations side of it, then we also have the sales, because it's a retail sales environment as well. We have we have goals to meet as well. I mean, we have a certain number of checking savings accounts we're targeting to open, and because obviously it's a for-profit business. We're out there to make money as well, and
right.
So we're looking at all ways we can help our customers meet their life priorities and find the best products and services that fit those life priorities for them, and enable them to get the best value that they can for their money and the products and services that are the right fit for them, and align those with our sales goals. And then, the personnel management as well. I've got 16 people in my financial center, from the tellers to the personal bankers. I have a small business banker. I have a mortgage loan officer. And Bank of America also, they bought Merrill Lynch a few years ago, and so Merrill is now our brokerage affiliate. There is a line of separation. Again, government regulation separates the banking industry from investments.
Right.
But we do have two Merrill representatives that work in my center, and although they don't work directly for me, I do have a dotted line, if you were, so to speak, if you were to come up with a hierarchy matrix. Since they do work in my center, they do report to me on certain things. But so a lot of people that I have to manage as well, and work schedules, you name it. So it's quite a large job.
Yeah, it is, and that's kind of interesting too, coming out of the Navy into the banking area like that, and kind of, if I understand it right, you kind of roll right into the top of a financial center as the manager. So, how do people take that? As because there's the saying, you got to work your way up from the bottom. In an institution, say, climb the ladder, however you want to word that. So how do people take you coming right out of the military into the financial banking area like that?
You mean like the people that were already working in at the bank?
Yes.
Actually pretty well. They obviously I had a lot to learn, but I came into it with the with that attitude. I didn't come into it thinking that I was all that and knew everything, because I definitely did not. I was there to learn, and use the experience of the people that were already working there to help me along, and I think that went a long way with gaining their trust and respect as well, because just showing sincerity and your willingness to learn and lean on others, I think goes a long ways. So that's kind of my attitude, how I went into it.
Okay. So did your military leadership experience, did that help you, do you think, and does it continue to help, or did it hinder you at all, or continue to hinder you? I don't know if that makes sense the way I asked.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely helped me. Working in the military, obviously there can be a lot of, there's so many different leadership styles that are out there, and it's just prevalent no matter where you're at, if you're in the military or civilian workforce. But one of the things that I really learned through my experience in the military was taking the good parts of the good leaders that I worked for, and making sure that I didn't use the bad leadership examples that I saw as well. And one of the better ways, and the military can be very direct, dictatorial. It can be very one way. This is do as I say. This is what you're going to do. You don't have any choice. And there is some of that now. And obviously, in the military, you have to have some of that. But there's also a lot of collaboration that can be used as well. And I always found that collaborating with people and getting people's buy-in worked much better. One of the things that I learned early on was it's much better to get people to work with you than it is to make them work for you. And so if you can get people's buy-in and get their engagement and their support, you'll have a much more effective team. and I use that throughout my career in the military as well, to the best of of my ability. And that's what I've taken with me to the civilian workforce as well. And it's worked for me in the banking industry now for, well, it's been going on 2 years now.
Nice. Okay. Very interesting, that transitional, leadership. Because one thing I've noticed or heard from, through different transitioning programs is that sometimes military people, like you mentioned earlier, think that just because you're in the military, everybody's just going to follow you and do everything you say and want to hire you. And so that military leadership is a great foundation, is from what I understand from what you're saying, and that it will definitely be something that will help. If you've been a great leader in the military, it's easier to transition using those leadership skills and foundation in the civilian world.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you love most about what you do?
I'd say it's the people part for me. I've met some great people in the banking industry since I've been with them, and I've been able to make people stretch a little bit and grow, which is something that I always like to do as well. And that's something else that I learned from the military. You're always training your relief and trying to get people to move up the ladder and doing what you can to help them improve. And that's something else that I love doing, and I'm doing it now with the bank as well. And I've been able to get a few people already promoted into positions that they didn't think that they were ready for or were interested in doing, but didn't know if they had really what it took. And I was able to kind of work with them and show them the path and help them succeed and basically kind of push them up, lift them up, and get them moving on a long-term career path.
Okay. Is that something you see out there? I've been in the military myself. I know that, like you said, replacement or training out replacements is something common in the military, because at some point you're going to move on to something new and somebody's going to take your spot, which is a little bit different than the civilian career sector, I think. So do you see a lot of that kind of leaders helping other people grow, or do you see it less in the civilian sector or more?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Because so far my only experience is really with the bank at this point. What I've seen so far, though, is it's kind of a mixed bag. You have, and again, that goes back to all sorts of leadership styles out there and all sorts of people with different ideas and whatnot. And there are some good leaders that I've met at the bank, and there are some that are not so good as well. And so I think the good leader is always the type of person that's looking to help others improve and succeed. And we do have a fair share of those, but there's also some that really don't want to do anything but come in and do their daily job and go home at the end of the day, and they don't really put a whole lot of time or effort into their people that work for them. So that's kind of an unfortunate thing.
Okay. All right. And talking about that, is there anything that you don't love about what you do, or that you would maybe say isn't your favorite part of what you do?
For me, I would say, and I said it earlier, it's we're into sales as well. It's not just, there's all kinds of things with banking, and sales is part of it. And that's, sales is not really my forte. I've done sales in the past. When I was still active duty several years ago, I was licensed. I was a financial advisor. I was licensed to sell mutual funds and investments and life insurance and different things, and I made financial plans for people. But it was a sales thing, and having to call people, cold calling, and go to people's houses and things like that, I didn't really like. And now that I'm at the bank, I don't have to do the cold calling and go into people's houses, but the sales isn't exactly what I like to do. Although at the bank it makes it easier because people usually come in because they want to open a checking account or a savings account, or they want to apply for a home loan or a car loan. So, it's a little bit easier that way. But I would say if I'm going to continue with the bank, I think I want to move out of the financial center environment and up into more of a district management type of a position on the operations side, where I'm not really so involved with the sales aspect of it.
Okay. Fair enough there. I think sales is one of those things, people like it or they don't like it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've met both sides. So, now what lessons did you learn from your transition? And kind of along with that, did anyone warn you of something beforehand that you saw that maybe you didn't take heed to, or that you didn't, because there's lots of warnings, or people say, don't forget to do this, or you better do this. Is there anything that you were told that you didn't necessarily follow and it still worked out?
No, not particularly. I think part of the transition, and those that are in the military, that would be listening to this would understand this, all your medical records and all that kind of stuff that absolutely has to be in order before you transition out. And that was something that I really did focused on as well. But other than that, for me, it was all about, I made transitioning and finding a new career a job. And you have to treat it as such. It can't just be a part-time thing. I mean, obviously you're still working in the military until the day you're actually done, but you've got to put forth a considerable amount of time and effort and treat it as a job in finding that next career. You can't just sit back and think that it's going to come to you, because it won't. You've got to use all the available resources that are out there and work it, and then that's what I did.
Okay. Some people just hope that it works out. I found a few of those.
Yeah. Hope is not a course of action.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad to hear that I'm glad to hear the way you put that as it has to become kind of a second job too. You have to do your day job and continue being a leader and being a person in the military, doing your job, making sure that we're successful. But then also take the time, maybe in the evenings or weekends, where you throw in, going to some networking events or, reading books about transition, talking to people or something like that. If you could go back in time, what age would you go back to, and what would you tell yourself? And I'm not looking for, because sometimes people say, what would you change? And I myself don't believe that I would change anything in my life, because I wouldn't be here where I am today. But is there anything that you would tell yourself? So kind of go back in time, what age, and give us some context of what you were doing, and what would you tell yourself?
That's a tough question, because I agree with what you're saying there. If I were to go back and change anything, then who knows what life would be like today. And I'm blessed with, a couple of wonderful kids and, wife, and just, my life as it is. And I don't know that I would necessarily change anything at all, other than some of the stupid mistakes that I've made along the way, with finances and things like that, which, are kind of a school of hard knocks that you learn along the way. But, that would probably be about it, was just, pay closer attention to the finances in your early life, so that you don't have to do as much catch up when you're, towards the end of your working life. I was able to correct a lot of those, midway, but had I done that earlier on in life, it would have been a lot easier.
Okay. Fair enough. So are there any daily routines you use? Being in the military, I'm sure you had a routine. And now that you're not in the military anymore, are there any routines that you use daily that you see as, helping keep you successful or keeping you on track?
Well, one of the things, in the military, obviously, as you know, is we call it morning quarters, and where everybody gathers together and you discuss what's coming up for the day, kind of a plan of the day, so to speak. And I was happy to see that the bank at least does that. At least Bank of America, we do it. We call it the morning huddle. But you get your team together in the morning and kind of spell out, okay, this is what we got going on today. This is what I expect of you. This is, talk about lunch schedules. I mean, you name it. I mean, it's a way for everybody to come together and have a plan. So that's one of the things that I'm definitely embraced and glad that we're doing and continuing to do. And then one of the things also in the military, you learn to use checklists and to-do lists and things like that, and I've incorporated that, and I use those on a daily basis as well to make sure that I'm keeping everything on track and doing what I'm supposed to get done, and don't let anything slide or forget to do.
Okay. That's interesting. Routines. I got a book that is called Daily Routines, and it just goes over the daily routines of artists and writers, people that are in the creative world. So it's always been interesting on what daily routines people have. So, and it's also interesting that Bank of America does something similar to the military. That muster. I know I've been to places where we didn't do the muster, and I felt completely out of place because I was so used to that routine of having to, see everybody we're working with and what's coming up for the day or the week. So,
right.
That's very interesting. It's cool. I'm glad to hear that that's how, at least at Bank of America, like you said. Not sure of other places, but that's probably something, even if as a manager you could probably do on your own as well if you're a leader out, coming from the military.
I think so, and even if you've never had military experience, I mean, it's just a good practice to do, whether your company actively promotes it or not. I think if you're going to be a leader and a manager, you need to do that. You need to get your team together in the morning and kind of lay out your plan, lay out your vision of what you expect and how things are going to go for the day. Whether you're involved in sales or any other business venture, you've got to have a plan and make sure your team is all on the same page.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, good. Thanks for that. And so looking back in your life in the past, is there any skills that you have improved that at first you said the words "I can't"? Something that you said you couldn't do, but later on found out that you could do?
Yeah, I would say probably listening skills is one of them. You've got to be a good listener to be able to have an effective communication with somebody. I've definitely been able to get better at that. Public speaking is another. I used to be, I'm an introvert by nature, and it was very hard for me in the early days, especially in the military, where you're expected to get up and speak in front of people. It was hard for me to do, but over time I've definitely improved on that, and now I have no problem speaking in front of large groups or anything like that if I needed to. But so I think those are definitely areas that I've improved in.
Okay. How do you think you improved in those? Was it more just being forced to do it, so you learned it, or was it something that you saw that you wanted to improve on, so you took the steps towards improving on it?
A little bit of both, to be perfectly honest. You're kind of forced into certain situations, but then, I realized that I had to improve in those areas if I wanted to succeed and continue to move up. So I put forth the effort to do it.
Okay. When you think of successful, who comes to mind and why?
That's probably a tough one for me. I don't know. I would say, I don't know. I might have to think about that one. Actually, get back to you on that one.
Okay. Maybe this will help. What about a billboard? If you could put up a billboard anywhere in the world, what would it say? And where would you put it up? Or even just in the United States, even?
I don't know. Like that. Those are the two that I said would probably be kind of hard for me to answer. That's a tough one. I'd have to think about that one.
Okay. How about books? Is there any books that you either that have really influenced you a lot or that you gift or suggest the most to people that are looking for books to read?
Well, there's a couple books that I've read over the years. I've never been one into these big leadership books and stuff. I mean, a lot of those are, I don't know. To me, you're either a leader or you're not, and you can get some good ideas from some of these books, but quite honestly, in my opinion, as a lot of these books are overrated, and the authors are just making money on people. And whether you agree with that or not, I don't know, but that's my opinion. But there have been a couple books that I have liked. One was an older book. So I mentioned earlier that I was licensed as a financial advisor and did some things. And the founder of the company at the time had written this book, and it was very, very good. It was called Pushing Up People. And the guy's name is Art Williams, Art for short for Arthur. And it was an amazing book that just talked about how to build up people and how to inspire people and get people kind of back to that collaborative kind of environment that I mentioned earlier as well. And it's just a really, really good book. I'd recommend anybody to read it. Kind of a secret of success to American business success story, and how he started out from nothing basically and built a multi-million-dollar company.
Okay.
And then another one that I read that I thought was very fascinating was also a little bit of kind of leadership and business success. Again, was a Starbucks book called Onward, How Starbucks Fought for Its Life Without Losing Its Soul, and it was written by the founder and CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz. I'd recommend anybody read that one as well, because he had stepped away from the company for about 8 years and then returned, and the company was kind of in a decline when he returned, and he was able to turn it around and make it, bring it back up to the level that it is today. So,
nice.
Those would be two books I definitely would recommend anybody read.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. And you're up in the Starbucks beginning, right? Didn't they started there in Seattle area?
Yep.
Yeah. I think I went to the original Starbucks over there in downtown.
Yeah, Pike Place Market. Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. I don't know if you have somebody that's successful that comes to mind and why.
I don't know. There's a lot of different variations of what you can call successful or not. Not everybody's famous.
Right.
I would say, I've had a couple of great leaders that I've worked with over my life in the military and whatnot. And one of my first good leaders was a guy named Mark G. And he was my leading petty officer when I was a young second class. Taught me a lot about leadership and responsibility and growing up, and the funny thing is, he retired as a chief E7. I retired as a master chief E9, so I ended up passing him up actually, but I always looked up to him and really owed a lot of my career to him for all the things that he taught me about leadership and whatnot. So although he's not famous and
yeah.
Like I said, I even ended up passing him up before he retired, but I couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah.
So that would just be one example,
Yeah, that's a great example because everybody, like you said, everybody has that idea of successful. Some people place money on successful. Some people place leadership and influence on others, and that's why I asked the question, because of there's such a great variation in that, and I would love for people to understand that, sometimes successful, even though mainstream, media and everybody else has one idea of successful, that each of us as individuals can have that definition of successful. So that's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because I don't think success is really measured in, stuff. I think stuff is overrated. I think to be, if you're successful and you're happy about what you're doing and happy with your life, that's success right there.
Right. Okay. That's great. I appreciate that too. And so I'll give you the chance for any last words, and maybe if you have any at the end of it, if you have any ways that you'd like people to contact you, if you want them to contact you. If not, that's okay too. I can put those contacts in there, maybe on LinkedIn or something like that. But I'll give you the chance for any last words that you might have, if you have any.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not one of many words, but I just thank you for the opportunity to kind of just participate in this. I'm always willing to help people, and I really have a love of obviously of military people transitioning out as well. I volunteer for a couple places up here in the Seattle area, and who works exclusively with transitioning military, and I'm always happy and excited to help anybody out. So go ahead and put my contact information up. LinkedIn is a great way to do it. Although it's kind of hard to connect with people sometimes unless you're in their premium service, which is kind of a downside to LinkedIn, I guess.
No, your time is valuable, and I thank you very much for giving us this time to kind of dig in a little bit on your transition. So thank you very much, and I look forward to maybe doing this again down the road as I get better myself and learn more questions, and possibly if anybody else has some follow-on questions. So.
Sure.
Again, take care, and I will talk to you again later. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.